Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Frankie's Open Mic. I thank you all for joining us. And we are joined today by John Beyer, screenwriter, who has graciously decided to join me for an interview. Our friend from Resilient Film Studios. Hello, Stephen. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I am doing so well. I'm so happy to be here. I am excited to dive right into your story. So before we get into a few of your scripts, because I do love that you write from, as we were just talking about, what you know, tell me just a little bit about your, shall we say, origin story. How did John Beyer become a screenwriter? What got you sparked into writing? What was the creative juices that inspired you to jump into writing?
Part of me wanted to be a comedian, and the other part wanted to be a screenwriter. When I was younger, Chevy Chase and Tom Hanks were huge inspirations.
Love it already. Excited about it.
Much younger. As a late teenager, I saw Clerks, so that kind of changed my whole view and everything. And that's when I wanted to write. It was Clerks, True Romance, El Mariachi, that whole genre.
True Romance, great one.
Oh, I love it. It's one of my favorites. I wrote between 18 and 24 for leisure until I felt like I wrote a good one, and I just for the next 14 years got married, had a child, and enjoyed life as it was. At the age 38, well, a little, let's see, 10 years ago, at a family barbecue, not a family barbecue. We always had the get-togethers here. We always together every summer, and I decided to throw in a contest, a silly contest, and it was a success. So the next barbecue, we did like 3 contests, and the following year we did a whole day's worth of contests, and we called it Buyer Stock. We gave it a theme.
Oh, how fun. I love this.
It was pretty it was huge.
It's your own little like state fair, right? It's just in a little mini version.
Crazy.
I love it.
Yep. And that Christmas, I decided to do Christmas party in the same vein, but inside the house. But I wanted to host as a character, and I always wanted to do comedy with slides. I wanted to. The punchlines were always the slides. Or I set up, the setup was a slide, and then the punchline was a slide. And I figured how to do that on Facebook, practically a private post, private album, and that's how I started a whole couple of years of doing that. It grew bigger. Get-togethers became bigger. The slideshows themselves became almost weekly posts. We documentary things that we did. We eventually did satires like Buyer's Day Off, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I love, yes, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's a great one to emulate. I love it. So this content that just sort of organically became the thing that you were doing.
Exactly. I was putting on this whole show, and I had more fun narrating it, which brought me back to screenwriting. 7 years ago, almost 7 years ago.
I love that. That's so much fun. The playfulness of it, I think, is probably my favorite bit. I do believe that is where a lot of like our best creativity comes from, is that playful energy.
Yes. I brought my characters out to bars, and we found a karaoke place that we brought our fun to. It went on for quite a while, and that's kind of where
No, go ahead, tell me. I love this, like the characters thing, because it's something that I've been doing lately too with my friends. This like playing characters and being the other alternative infinite versions of you that exist in the multiverse, right?
That is true. Yeah, so I documented a lot of it. We went out. Not only did comedy with slideshows. I said we did parodies into slideshows, and then even if it was birthdays or holidays, I'm just documenting it and narrating it, and that's kind of where I found my voice. And I love it. I got to a point where I didn't think we could go any higher or bigger or better with what we were doing. You got to come to a point where you're like, okay, let's end it here on a high note, and let's translate my voice to film, and that's brought me back many years. And my first script was Living the Moments, which
yes. And that is, I was just going to pull that one up. I do enjoy the this little tagline here. Living in the Moments is not only a satire of today's dating scene, but a contemporary classic. And it's also based on a true story, which who doesn't love based on a true story? So tell me a little bit about this little rom-com that's based on your life, living in the moment.
It is based on my life. The man, he's a middle-aged man, kind of going through a middle-aged crisis, you know. And
Don't we all have? I mean, it's just a part of this human experience that you get so far and you know so much, and kind of like when you have to start the new project. It's been great so far, but now what?
yeah, 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 yeah. It was like a middle-aged crisis. I was dressing up in character. I was writing characters, writing jokes, and writing songs, and performing it all. And but I became, you know, and and I inspired many people, and I was admired, and I was desired. And once someone becomes the center of attention, it comes great responsibility. So I pulled myself from away from that scene, and to say, you know, during that period, as husband and wife, we went through a rekindling phase, which was great, where we got off our chests with each other. And the job I had at the time was less responsibility, less work, and just as I got more off my shoulders and things off my mind and off my chest, more artistic I became.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what Living Moments is about. It's about a guy that's out there doing his thing, and he falls in love with somebody, and he has to grow up a little bit to keep that relationship.
I think that is a fun little thing to explore. Has to grow up a little bit to keep the relationship, you know? And do you explore that maybe just a bit? The idea of, because you do need that playful creative energy to spark something,
You do.
right? I mean, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a project, whether it's, you know, something, a piece of art, whatever it is. But you do always need to have that balance. And we live in this world of like the ADHD, high excitement, really low stumble, right? How do you balance that then with the, if you want something sustainable, if you want to be in an energy that you can sustain both the playful and
Mhm.
the sort of longevity, where how do you find that balance?
We found that balance by we found a beautiful 5-star resort here that's only an hour away. It's a theme resort, so every couple of months we go, right. You
Well,
know,
that I
first, you know,
make
that
sure you're keeping that play in there. I love it.
exactly. And every once in a while I try to get the old gang back together, and we do something. This summer we just did karaoke here at the house, you know.
Oh, so fun. Keeping that playfulness and keeping the fun alive.
Right.
So
Every
let
once,
me
not every week.
well, I mean, every week gets to be, I mean, again, the ups and downs of the ADHD culture, you got to balance yourself out with some rest in there. That's necessary. I totally understand. So I love that you have a wide range of genres in your screenwriting. So another one, and I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, pull this up here. That you also have All Souls Day, which is in the horror genre. So we
Yes.
go from rom com to horror. Now, you say you write mostly about what you know. Tell
Yes.
me, tell me where the horror element comes in here.
Well, after writing my own story, I give a crack at horror, and I sat down and watched a lot of the Friday 13th, Nightmare on Elm Streets, just to get
The
a vibe.
classics.
A vibe. But also, you know, All Souls Day is about a woman that has experienced many premonitions over her life, and she's never taken them serious, right? And here she goes.
Okay, very interesting.
Yes, and here she goes through her journey, taking that serious, following the clues, following the premonitions, which was inspired by some of my own premonitions, not premonitions, but dreams I've had from people that have passed and gave me messages, and I've passed them along.
That is something that's really interesting and fascinating. That's definitely right up my alley. This is something that I would love to talk a little bit more about, if you don't mind, like dreams. And because I am someone, I do absolutely believe that we are all interconnected to an infinite intelligence, right? And there is information you can get from your dreams if
Yes.
you're able to remember them and interpret it. So tell me a little bit about this experience, and what are the premonitions, in what way? I'm fascinated.
In 2 years, 2012, 2 years before this 10-year journey started, my father-in-law passed away suddenly, And 2-3 days later, he came to me in a dream. And he showed me 2 lockboxes. One was full of keys, and he went to open the other one, and I just started to lose him, and I grabbed his hand, and I lost. Once I realized what was going on, I don't know what happened. I lost. So I didn't know what was in the second box. So I went to my mother-in-law the next day or two, and I told her about the 2 block boxes, and she had no idea what the dream might have been about. So I went through the garage and ripped through his garage and didn't find anything. And I sat down on the table, and a light bulb went off in my mother-in-law's head. She walks to the bed. She walks to her bedroom. 2 minutes later, she comes back out with two lock boxes, which was my father-in-law's. And we opened the first one. It was full of keys.
I am so excited that it's just lining up exactly how it is in your dream. What do we get to find out is in mystery box number 2?
Mystery box number 2 was a few things. His father's dog tags and a bracelet that belonged to his mother. And a bunch of Harley Davidson memorabilia. But I didn't think that was really important. So I gave the dog tags to his brother and the bracelet to his sister at the funeral, which they didn't think existed anymore. And we all took it away, him just saying everything was going to be okay. And from there,
beautiful.
Yeah. So that was just crazy. And from there, it just continued for at least 2 years. From messages from him and other people, it got pretty crazy.
That is fascinating. Is this something that, so you worked this into your script writing of All Souls just a bit? Like how did you integrate this?
I think this door was open. I mean, I've had dreams in the past. I wasn't sure if they were real or not from relatives, and I played with a Ouija board when I was much younger. So that flashback is an All Souls Day, and
you gotta have a Ouija board incident in there. You just gotta. If you're gonna have people from the other side of the veil popping into dreams saying hello, you gotta have yourself a Ouija board moment. It's kind of required.
We were teenagers. We were babysitting next door, and we were on the floor playing. And there was a console TV in front of us, and back of us there was a recliner with a sheet on the seat. And as we're playing it, I looked up at the TV screen, and behind us, there's somebody sitting in that chair with the sheet draped over them. We turned, and that sheet is still on the seat. Yeah, it was crazy. And then we ran. Of course we hid.
And then we ran screaming like that was the end of that sleepover party. That's so much fun. That should just be I love that is worked into the film. I can't wait. Oh, I just can't wait to see more. And that is so exciting. Is this something that you have, if you don't mind my asking? So is that a continuation of have you had a continuation of that experience of having those sort of premonitory dreams since that space of sort of wanting to write in the horror genre, or did that sort of dissipate after you were kind of done with that project?
There was a lot of heavy dreams like that from 2012 to 14, and then one of my best friends passed about 2019-20, and he came to me several times about several things, but I could never really put together. But after he passed, pictures around the house they're all crooked. I don't know what was going on. I'm like, he must be messing with me, and I didn't know
Just
this.
kind of pushing it just a little bit.
And my other buddy said he used to do that to me all the time, behind my back, would drive me crazy. I didn't know that, right? So that's kind of funny. So that was, yeah.
I love it when a spirit decides to just play a little bit of silly buggers when they come on back. I'm just going to shift your picture frames an inch to the left is what I'm going to do. Yeah, oh, that is just so much fun.
Yeah. And that was Jay. And one of his last comments to me was, the time is right. You must seize the moment about this screenwriting, shortly before he passed. So those are words I've clinged on, and also inspired my third script, McLucky's Buttercrawl. Well,
I was just about to pull that one up. So tell us about McLucky's Pub Crawl. I do love this. Relaxed tale of friends enjoying a night together. I am already... Who doesn't love a good hangout time with their friends? And I'm so excited already for how we roll into this, since your friend inspired you in such a again, beautiful way. I really do. It's interesting to me, right? The idea of how you have these people who in your life will just kind of bop in
Yeah,
out of nowhere and inspire you to get back to that thing that, oh yeah, was the thing that I liked doing. That's right. I enjoyed writing.
right. It's
So
true.
tell me about this pub crawl.
Well, we opened the film with those exact words on the screen. This, the time is right, and you must seize the moment for sure. You know how living
The
in moments
time
was
is right. You must seize the moment.
right. Um, so how living moments is inspired about somebody center attention, kind of gives it up to save the one save the one he loves, save the relationship he is in. But Lucky's is the opposite, really. It's about a man that decides not to continue his relationship and continue to entertain and play the field and have a good time, and he regrets those choices. And he's not only lost time with her, he's lost time with his friends trying to figure out who he is, what he wants to be. And that's also inspired by a lot of the time that I have spent and lost with many over the years trying to, who am I, a comedian, am I a writer? Back in the day entertaining people, I missed much time with many, and with writing I've missed much time with most. And it's not an easy thing, but that's how that McLucky's has come about.
Well, again, but this is interesting. Again, the idea of balance, right? Sort of the yin and yang, the two sides of the coin, and everything is available and possible in the infinite multiverse, which is the movie that you want to see. So this is, I really do enjoy this. Do you in your writing, when you sort of look at, so for example, again, the juxtaposition of the two sides of the coin of I decided to make it work, do the relationship thing, or I decided not to. Do you find, how would I want to say this? Do you find that you are able to, Megan, creatives cannot balance. It is a difficult thing. Maybe that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. How do you really find a balance when you have that capacity to put yourself in those different characters and in the shoes of those characters? It's so easy for you to fluidly become the thing you're writing about. How do you really find a way to stay centered in yourself and in who you are when creatives do have such a capacity to understand so many different various facets of human experience and the different characters that we have the capacity to be?
It was I tread light. I did had tried lightly at led. I tread lightly at first. I didn't want to give away too much of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, you do you rework the script. You get a little closer, but not too close, so you don't hurt anybody in the path. I like to be in. I like everything I've written is inspired by. It's not based on it. I can see.
Mm-hmm.
If I everything on it wouldn't work. I believe so. It's been a hard line, but you do find that balance. You're inspired by the idea, you're inspired by the character, and you go from there. You don't rewrite history. You don't. You start with that, but you don't end with that. Or if that makes any sense.
It does. When you are writing then and sort of going back and forth between all of these different, for example, genres or different spaces or characters that you're embodying, is there anything that you personally do? Because I think Megan makes a good point in the comments here that we as creatives have, I don't want to say necessarily a tendency or a proclivity, but can go off the deep end maybe a bit more easily than others, right? Because you do sort of lose yourself sometimes in the
Right.
creative process. Is there anything that you do that, or techniques or anything you use, again, just to help keep yourself centered in the who am I being and who do I really want to be, and keeping myself and my characters sort of compartmentalized?
I can't say I never got lost into anything by writing it. Trying to get these things made is a whole other story. That's where you get lost. Um, I don't feel
We'll
like
talk. You don't feel like you get lost in the characters or the stories?
no. I mean, most of my stories, Living Moments and McLucky's and Kane's Theater are the 3 films that are have a male lead. The other ones are a female lead, so it's not really. I don't feel
Well,
like.
tell me a little bit about that then, shifting yourself into the perspective of a character that you might not necessarily have personal experiences to draw from, right? What is your process when you're writing something like that? When you have to, again, you can do inspired by for your own stories, but you'd have to really dig into what's it like to be this other character.
It's like like it's like you're acting out the role. It's almost like you're acting out the role spontaneously and hearing the conversations in your head, and you write it out that way. I don't think there's really nothing tricky about it, unless now that I think of it, all the female characters are probably inspired by myself too, in some way, somehow. Right.
So well, that's an interesting other perspective of it, right? And that's something that, like, for myself as a writer, when I write, I really do think of it as I'm channeling this other infinite parallel version of myself, right? And I'm getting this character who exists in another dimension, timeline, whatever, and I'm channeling that information, right? Do you ever, because you say you're like hearing the conversations in your head, which is something, again, and as creatives, we have that kind of constant ticker tape of different things just happening in your head, right? Talk to me a little bit about what that's like for you. Again, I think that some people who are creatives can get a little feeling the ADHD overwhelmed by that, right? Do you ever have that sensation? Do you ever have to deal with a little bit of that's a lot of things coming at me?
Not in the writing process. Recently, doing budgets and pitch decks and pitching and.
The more mechanical, I guess, element.
Yeah, I can fall asleep and wake up and realize I have to change something on line 100 in the budget, or even in the script sometimes. Oh, and I don't know how this must be cemented in your brain that you've gone over it so many times that something on page 20 is wrong.
I mean, that's, again, a little bit of that hyper focus that we have as creatives sometimes with our own projects. So I'm just going to bring up another one because you did mention, and I was just looking at your Solstice. So we're back into the horror. So I kind of we're going to bounce around with your genres here and the questions the way that you do seem to bounce around. So we're back into the horror. Tell me about Solstice and a little bit of the inspiration behind the story of Solstice.
Solstice is inspired once again by the whole party genre. The film is based on starts off at a theme party and someone is murdered, and we fast forward 10 years later and circles have changed, people have changed, and it's a reunion of sorts. Sort of, I always thought a murder mystery slideshow or a party would be interesting, so I sat down to write someone being murdered at one of the parties, and then I decided to jump 10 years, not just continue the story there, because by that point, as one circle closed, another one opened, and I was kind of dealing with circles, like we all do in our life. Prior to the whole entertaining, my closest buddies, we had a child first. Then, as I was entertaining everyone, they had children, so we kind of became distant, and this whole new circle formed. And then when I hung up the entertainment circle, that circle practically just disappeared. And I was trying to get back to my older circle, which never really left. We just saw each other once in a while. Of course, Jay passed, and that was on my mind. So I think that's why that story shifts 10 years. And we kind of explores how circles change, if it be jobs, death, jealousy, dislike.
Well, talk to me a little bit about that then, the parallels in sort of maybe some of the, I don't know if you want to say lessons learned, but just as you go through this human experience in these different cycles, what are the perspectives that you gain, right? Maybe not necessarily lessons learned, but perspectives gained from that experience of a shift of cycles or circles, or maybe, I guess, pockets of consciousness that you're in, sort of the space that you, I don't know if you want to say belong in, right? Like we all belong everywhere we are. I believe that as well. But talk to me a little bit about this sort of the who you were and the who you are, and sort of revisiting those spaces.
I think to answer your past 5, 6 questions, it's all about finding balance.
Mhm.
It's all about balance. And honestly, I really haven't found that balance. I'm still trying to find that balance. When you're working 18 hours a day, it's difficult to find time to do some of the simplest things. So let's go have dinner or a movie with
Mhm.
a buddy or a friend. That becomes more anxiety and stress filled than the actual things, the work and the creative stuff I'm doing. That is where I struggle.
It's that I think that's something that a lot of us do struggle with, right? Again, as creatives, you get hyper focused on your project, on your thing, this thing you're trying to create and birth into the universe, right? And you do, I don't want to say isolate, that's not the word, but you do become very hyper focused, and that is a tough balance sometimes. But
In a,
I no, go ahead.
in a way, it does isolate you. It does. It can be isolating. Immense, and you go into this business, and I mean, look at some of the greats that did not survive. Jim Belushi's, all those guys. They had problems before coming into a business like this, and it's extremely difficult. And it is isolating. It's not what you. If you're here to be famous or for the fame, you're not going to last. This is about the creative energy and initiative, and that's probably why I've lasted so long. I'm so I'm sober, whatever. But then again, this stuff could drive you that kind of stuff, and it's very difficult. People don't understand how isolating it can be, and how, I mean, one day, I mean, it just, weeks go by, months go by, and before you know it, years have gone by.
It really is. That time becomes very fluid when you're very focused like that.
Right.
But I do think it speaks to the passion that we have as creatives, that there is this spark, this thing, this drive that you have internally that you can't ignore for anything, right? And sometimes it does mean that some of your other facets of life, are not, again, you're maybe not finding the balance as much as you want, but as a creative, there is something you can't really ignore, that thing that you need to be, that project that needs to get
You,
out.
if you put it away, yeah, it's terrible. I put it away for 14 years, right? I kind of buried it. I buried a lot during the whole entertainment business, the entertainment scene. It was, I repressed a lot. We both repressed a lot. We got a lot off our chest, and it got to a point. We did the 50s gathering here, and the day after, I'm looking at the wall of all the pictures and everything we've done, and I said, "Oh my God, it's time to move on from this for sure." And I looked and I said, "Wow, but what are we going to do with that creative energy? I can't keep entertaining like this. We've done it all. What else can we do? But what do we do with that?" So I go back to screenwriting. I haven't done that 14, in
Mhm.
16 years. So I just looked at that wall and I said, "And there's the first story."
Well, isn't that, again, sort of the idea of the universe orchestrating things in perfect timing, perfect ways? Well, what were you doing for those 14 years you weren't writing? You were building all of your stories. You were experiencing all of your stories. You were creating the content that you would be using to write your screenplays.
You
And
you have to live first before you
you
write.
have to live first before you write.
Yeah.
That belongs on a t-shirt. That's fantastic. I could not have said it better myself. I'm going to keep rolling through some of these because I'm so enjoying this little journey we're on, this writing journey. So tell me now about Harper High is the next one that we have here, in development with Orlando Entertainment. Tell me about this one and where did we draw our inspiration from in all of our story creation and experiencing life first?
I wrote this during COVID. We
There,
yeah, we love to take walks, and we love to travel. And during that period, we did a lot. We didn't travel. We stayed here in the state, did a lot of walks. We had the world to ourselves. And I really wanted to express a story about how there's just more peace than violence in this world, and how there's more beauty than destruction, which inspired this amazing story. It's an interracial love triangle during the 1951 Cicero riots. And during our time entertaining, we met so many amazing people. You know, you're out there, you're dressed up silly, and people will just tell you their life story. You know,
mm-hmm.
just seeing all the good in people and seeing all the sights, it really inspired that story. And I want to do something Grease-like. I always had something in mind, especially after doing that whole 50s presentation here. I did some research, and I came across this unexplored part of history where we can use that as a backdrop. And that was my first development agreement about 2 years ago.
So on the description of it for Harper High, it does say has a stable and mature storytelling, which I think is interesting. Again, because sort of, if you think of your screenwriting as a bit of a journey, maybe in and of itself, having a life of its own. Tell me about this sort of more mature energy that you're bringing to something that was written during COVID.
Yeah, I guess it's mature compared to the previous ones I wrote. It's a drama. I went from comedy to horror to drama. It's quite the switch.
But again, shows your versatility as a writer and a human being, and your capacity to experience different genres and be able to really, get into that energy and write from it.
Just ask yourself, where am I? What am I feeling? Where am I right now? Go from there. This will be your best work.
Go from there. So talk to me a little bit then about this more sort of mature energy, because I really do appreciate that perspective, especially, during being able to hold that perspective during COVID of there's more good in the world than bad, right? There's more peace than violence.
Mm-hmm.
That's not where we focus our attention necessarily, generally, right? But it is true. Talk to me a little bit about what did that do for you, would you say, as a creative, to be in that energy and create a project from that energy or that perspective?
It was amazing. It gave me a newfound energy. I did a lot of research on historical events, dialogue that was recorded in statements and everything. It's in the script. It was different. It was very different. It was a very serious subject matter. It was better than, there I am trying to make people laugh or scared before previous. And here I was trying to really convey some real emotion through a love story during a historical time in our history.
That's so excellent that you reviewed dialogue or period dialogue. So is that something, when you're creating your backdrops for your stories, do you do that? Is that maybe something that you do usually, or was that a new sort of creative rabbit hole to go down for you?
It was something new at the time, yes. And I haven't done it since, but I brought some more historical stuff into later scripts for sure.
Well, and that kind of speaks a little bit to the idea of, again, each project kind of having its own maybe energy, right?
Yeah.
That you're kind of tapping into as you create it, right? So, the Premonitory Dreams being its own little horror genre, like pocket of writing or creative energy that you're in. Is that something that you have a little bit of a sense of, or maybe you can talk a little bit about that? How connected do you feel to that sort of, again, getting into different spaces, different characters, writing from those spaces, and seeing, again, how very compartmentalized and separate they can be. Very, very different from one another.
Yeah, it's just fun.
It's just fun. That's what happens when you just have fun.
You gotta have fun. You gotta have fun. No, every time you sit down, you got some of the scripts, some of the characters have, of course, some traits of mine, or a story inspired by mine, or and then others. I mean, we were out there. We met a lot of people. You know, when you're in. And that's where this. I mean, a lot of these scripts, probably most of them, or all of them, just come from a certain time period, and then the period of me writing. COVID, of course, came in. You know, the world changed. I guess you can say. You know, this is an isolating journey, but what better time than COVID, right? To really start this and get into it. I was lucky enough for people that, well, you know, a lot of network chats. I got to see people tell their stories, and a lot of this just that would never happen prior, for sure.
That is something I generally do think of COVID as a blessing in that way. I know that's not, listen, lost people to COVID as well, not trying to, disregard anyone's feelings in that respect. But I think that the shift that happened in people's sort of being forced to interact, for example, in this way, or being forced to isolate, there was, it seems to me, a recognition for a lot of folks of their own creativity and the creativity that they were maybe ignoring and needing to tap into, right? Which is something obviously you felt and were able to sort of, I guess, of your own accord shift into. But I think a lot of people needed COVID as a, I don't want to say a punch, right? Like, but a little bit of a, hey, we all do have this creative energy in us. We all
Yeah,
have this capacity. Maybe we should all be exploring that more. From your perspective as someone who's been in the entertainment industry and who is still doing these projects and is still getting things produced, what perspectives or positives would you say you're seeing in the post-COVID creative world?
positives.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
mean, certainly share any of the perspectives you have, but I think I'm always looking for the positives line. We all want to find the silver lining, don't we?
yes, of course we do. Positives.
Or have you seen a shift? I mean, maybe that's another question, and it's maybe
When I started this, like winning a screenplay contest could do it for you, but I think those days are long gone. You know, a script is not going to get you too far. They want everything now: pitch deck, budget, beat sheet,
everything, all the homework done for them.
all the homework done for them. Exactly. We'll give you a big edge on everyone in the room.
Well, I think that's something, again, though, with this, I don't want to say shift to a digital or online world, but certainly that a lot of people are spending more time online in these sort of interactions, that there are more channels and opportunities being created for people who are creatives, have screenplays they want to produce or what have you, that there are more channels being created for that to happen. And the sort of, I don't want to say gatekeeping necessarily, but the idea of like being able to get your stuff out there, it's easier now than it ever has been with the internet, with like the things that were developed because of COVID, and how much easier things like this streaming from people around the world, right? And having these kind of interviews,
Exactly.
and in that vein, are you seeing, would you say, I don't know if an upsurge, but that it's maybe just that there are just more opportunities out there available to creatives?
There's more opportunities, but the competition has become more fierce as more opportunities have become that way, and you have to or do something. Find something about yourself, or do something that's going to make you stand out from the pack.
Again, in the vein of balance, how do you stand out from the pack while remaining authentic to yourself?
Exactly. And I took
That's
right. And this year, a friend of mine last year, uh, Wes Fisher, published a screenplay on Amazon, and that's what I did this year twice, and they were both #1 hits on Amazon and Kindle, and that really sped things along.
Well, and again, even that though. So, and that's something that I've thought about doing myself, like write a screenplay based on some of my stories, put it on Amazon. But even that, I guess, method or option, that's something new that is now available to write. Go ahead and put it out there now, put it out there yourself. And, you know, that playfulness and just try it out and see. You never know who's going to see it. You never know what good might come of it or the next domino that might fall because you tried.
Yes. Yes. For me, it was the bump. It kind of got over a hump for sure. I mean, the momentum going in was great. It was amazing. You know, everything seemed like it was going to happen, and then that just pushed me over the hump. And before you know it, we got this talent interested in all these roles, over 80 roles, all the scripts and directors attached and producers attached, and it's been a sleep.
It's a it's a wild ride, but it's an exciting ride. But it really does matter that you take the first step and that you just go ahead and put yourself out there, put your stuff out there and give it a go, right? Because it really is that you never know when it's going to hit and when it's going to the synergies where you meet the right people. And it's bound to happen because there is so much available now. And there are so many outlets now where people can find you, not just where you can put your stuff out, but where you can be found, right? And so just that abundance of opportunities there's so many people who could find you because there's so much available. Again, what a time to be alive for us creatives, right?
That's true.
So I wanted to bring up this one. I do want to get to like these last two that we've got listed here. Where were you when the lights went out? We've got this one a little bit more again in that getting some of the historical research. Talk to me about where were you when the lights went out?
I was being conceived in night. That's a true story.
The night that the lights went out in Georgia, there were all kinds of new humans being made.
I was born.
Valid.
This is no joke.
Tell me about this one. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, I was born in March 14th, 1978, and I did the math. And July 14th, 1977 was 9 months prior.
I love it. That's the fun kind of math that we all.
Yeah, my parents, I guess, had some fun in the dark.
It's how it happens. Tell me about the story.
It's about Linda. She's a aspiring actress that's been trying to make it for quite some time. Once again, isolated, a few friends left, distant from family, and the night the lights went out, she's waiting for results from a Broadway audition. This could be her big thing. And of course, the lights go out, and she's being chased by a masked killer during the whole night. And I guess you can say the masked killer itself and the riots is just sort of time itself, kind of represent time. Time's ticking. She's trying to live till morning. And once again, I wrote that during COVID, where a lot was going wrong, not only because of the virus. Several years earlier, I set out to make a change here. I wanted, and there I am a few years later, a lot of personal stuff going wrong, going the opposite direction, which I didn't want to happen. This is, it's just a crazy time, and that's how
the things that happen in this human life that sometimes you're just in that space of everything that I am intending is going exactly the opposite of what I am intending. What is happening?
Right. It was crazy. So it was intense. It felt like the walls were closing in, time was running out, and it was. I knew where I worked, certain restructure was coming down. And I was trying to beat the clock before that happened because I knew it was going to be more work, more exhausting. And as I just finished that, so I was trying to finish that script up before that kind of took place, and amongst other things. And businesses being closed down, and the pizza place here in the corner burning down. It was just again, once again, I asked myself, where was I? And I sat down, and that's how it came out.
Where am I? What am I feeling? And how can I channel this into something creative?
Intense, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about that. Sometimes those really most intense things in life can be some of your best work sometimes, right? But I think sometimes, at least for me, there's also an energy of I don't necessarily want to have to create from the chaotic spaces anymore. And I think maybe a lot of people feel that way, right? That yes, there are a lot of really great stories that can come from adversity, but can we as humans maybe start to explore some of the great stories that come from harmony?
Right. We can, for sure. That's kind of where I started. It was just kind of where I was at the moment.
Mhm.
Now with interest from investors is mostly are going towards comedies. We're looking at a future. There's been a lack of comedies. There's been a void of feel good movies.
There's been a void of feel-good movies indeed.
Exactly, and that's going to be the next wave. And
So glad that that's where my writing is then. Let's get together and write a story. Let's get some real good feel good fun times going on. Because
yes,
I think that is something that audiences are I don't want to say thirsty for, that's not maybe the way to say it, but that we are in a space of, just human consciousness where we're all looking for that fun, that play, that blissful experience. And the stories that can come again out of that and not necessarily out of the traumatic sort of things that we as humans have focused on.
exactly. Yeah, right now, the future looks like a lot of reality shows, game shows, and comedies. I mean, romantic comedies.
I'm here for it. I'm excited about it. Tell me, again, I want to get through just this last one. Tell me about Kane's Theater, the one that's, I don't want to say not last one is not the right way to say it. Obviously, ongoing writing, but tell us about Kane's Theater.
King's Theater is an idea when I was 18 years old. It's a very old idea about a man not inheriting. Him and his wife buys a movie theater. It's their dream. Unfortunately, she passes before they close on it. He moves in, and the theater's haunted.
Well, naturally, why wouldn't it be?
Why wouldn't it be, right? And
Every theater should be haunted.
it's a great homage to the golden age of cinema. I did some research and replicated some scenes from some classic movies, and probably some of my best work for sure.
Can I ask what classic movies we got some inspiration from? Just because that's a little my wheelhouse, my fun sauce. What do we got?
North by Northwest.
Beautimus. I love it. Get some Hitchcock in there.
Yes, yes. The one with Judy Garland. It was remade recently with Lady Gaga.
Ooh, A Star is Born.
Stars Born. Yes.
There it is. Yes.
And of course, Citizen Kane.
Of course. I mean, could you be more classic than an Orson Welles classic, right?
But once again, it was inspired. Like, where am I? Like, I want to write that, but I was like, what's the drive? What's the drive here? And at the time, things were, scripts were in development, things were going good, and I said, well, it's taken a long time to get here, all the sacrifice, and here we are. But what if something went wrong? Like, what if something terribly went wrong, and here I am living this dream, and she's not here, right? Once again, you take something, you twist it. Where am I right now? Everything's great, but God forbid something went wrong, right? That's kind of why. That's what kind of drives that story between him and his deceased wife.
I do so enjoy, though, a good ghost story, a good paranormal element in there. I do think that that is fun. So where would you say then of all these spans of different genres that you've been in and embodied, sure, comedy is where things are going. Where are your vibes? What's your next project? What's your creative energy? Where are you now?
Where am I now? I'm headed back to comedy.
Headed back to comedy.
A lot of my stuff still has comedy throughout. It's still there. It's just,
You need a sense of humor to get through the dark times too.
you do. You always got to have that one outrageous character. It was probably kind of my crazy side throughout each script, right? We all do it. But yeah, it's great to get back to comedy where I belong.
Where we all belong, where we all belong in the laughter and the fun and the joy. We all deserve that. And maybe that's a little bit of where we are is a pocket of human consciousness. I think that we're ready for the comedies to come back, that we do all deserve to experience that laughter and that joy. And it's time for us to return to that playfulness so that we can all get creative and create new stories from a harmonious place.
Yes, and I'm in a great place. As you can see, my scripts might have gotten darker as we went on, a little towards the end, but that's
Well, but you're revisiting again. It was an old idea and you're
sure,
revisiting it.
yeah, and it came to life. It was just the most amazing thing. Really.
But also goes to show that your dreams are things that you can bring to life at any time, no matter how old ideas might be,
Exactly.
right? You can bring those dreams to life at any time. I have so enjoyed this conversation with Stephen Beyer, Stephen John Beyer, screenwriter with a wide range. You're like Freddie Mercury of writing, right? Just all kinds of range going on. I love it. Check out the links in the description, y'all. But do tell everyone where you would like to direct them to find you, or where you'd like to direct folks to look for your work. If you, besides the links that we have down below, is there anything you really want to highlight for everyone to go check you out?
Yes, I believe we have. Of course, I'm on X and LinkedIn and our studio's website. I believe it's in the links.
Oh, it is in the links. Resilient Film Studios. Y'all check it out in the description. Check out Stephen and all his fun work and all of the new things that are surely to come, right?
Yes.
Because we're not done living and experiencing, and the story's not over yet.
No, it's not.
Thank you so much for joining me. This has been lovely. I have enjoyed it so very much. I do appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us in the comments and for watching. And we'll catch you again next time.
Hello everybody, Guy with the Chip here. Hope you enjoyed the content that you just got to see. It's always great to have you along for the journey here and enjoying the wildness that's on this channel. If you like it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy the video, give it the old thumbs up. I love thumbs ups. And we hope to see you along again soon. By the way, rumor has it that there's a great artist in this channel. The link in the description is where you can go ahead and decide for yourself if those rumors are true. Cheers everybody, we'll see you next time.